Karun, welcome to At Work on Connected to India.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on your appointment on Motorsport UK as one of the directors on their board. What will be your responsibilities?
Well, obviously, being a part of the main board of directors means that we have an overall view across the entire organization. I guess my, should we say, area of specialty is single-seater racing. I climbed the ladder of single-seater motorsport here in the UK, amongst other countries. And that's where, I think my strongest level of understanding of the sport lies, rather than rallying or rallycross and other disciplines of the sport. So, that's where I've sort of started out. But, down the line, I'd like to also see if there's a way for me to get more involved in the karting world, because that's where kids need to start. And this is where we need to get the next generation of kids into the sport. And if there's ways I can contribute to that, I'll certainly be looking into it.
You were 17 when you relocated to England. You raced Formula One, Formula E, sports cars, and so on. In a cricket crazy India, when did you decide that motorsport is going to be your choice of sport?
It's strange because I can't actually think of a time when it wasn't that decision. I was very lucky, I guess, that at the age of 3, 4, 5, I dreamt of being a racing driver, and had the opportunity and had the breaks to carry on that dream. And it's, to be honest, it's only when I got to sort of my mid-20s that I realized that that's quite unique, and actually, I don't know, 60, 70% of people go and do their undergrad degrees in something that they don't actually then follow on as their career, for example. So even into their early 20s, people are still unsure of what to do in life. I was in a very unique position, I guess, that I knew what I wanted to do as a kid, and I just carry that out. So, yeah, the answer to your question is a bit vague, because I don't actually have an answer to that.
Well, the answer to that question is yes, always.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to reflect on it, it was a big decision. You're just 17 when you relocated to England. Of course, you did very well, also became very popular. I believe there is a restaurant there which has named a few dishes after you on their menu.
Yeah, exactly. I moved here when I was actually 18, come to think of it. So when I came here, I went from a city of 11 million people in Madras to a town of 11,000 people here in Brackley in Northamptonshire, in the heart of Motorsport Valley. So I lived, 6 miles away from Silverstone. I could hear the Formula One cars testing at Silverstone. And every time I heard them, I'd jump in my car and go there and go watch, standing in the rain just to watch the cars. And I built a community. When I first arrived, of course, it was a shock to the system, because you've come to this small town in the middle of nowhere, and it's getting dark at 4 p.m. and it's pouring rain, and I'd gone from the beaches of Madras to that. But in the end, I learned to love the town. I lived there for 15 years, and became a part of the community, became part of the town. As you said, had a little bit of a fan base as well, because as I arrived there as a young teenager, starting my journey, or on the early steps of my journey to F1. And then I carried on living there when I was a Formula One driver and going to race at Le Mans and things like that. So, it was nice. It was nice to engage with the locals there. And as you say, some became more fans than others. So I now actually have a whole section on the menu at this restaurant, so which is quite funny. I think the most popular one seems to be this thing called the Mirchi Murgi, which we invented together, me and the restaurant owner. It's with it's chicken with green chilies, and it's pretty good. But it was actually a starter called the Karun Special, which
Nice.
again we invented one day, which is it's a naan, it's a stuffed naan with like a potato masala on the top. Like you'd have, I guess, like the masala you'd put inside a samosa sort of thing, but we kind of invented, it's like an Indian pizza, basically. It's a starter that became very, very popular.
What do you think of the new sprint qualifying format, which will be tested for the first time in Silverstone?
Yeah, that's right. It is. I was initially skeptical because I was a little bit unsure of what is the point of doing it. What's going to be different about it, apart from just being a shorter race, a shorter format of what we already have. But I think in the end, I've come around to the idea. I like the way the whole weekend is shaped up, because it means we will only have one practice session before qualifying, which a huge change for the teams and drivers. Normally they get 3. So they'll go into qualifying with a lot of unknowns, first of all, on Friday evening. It means we'll get some excitement on a Friday, which tends to be a bit more of a mellow day otherwise. We'll get an extra race start and an extra opening lap of the race, and it'll only be half an hour, so it'll be done pretty quickly on the Saturday. And then, of course, you still have the main Grand Prix on Sunday. So it means you get a build up through the day, every single day of the weekend, rather than just on qualifying and for the race. So I think it'll be good. I think it'll be interesting. I think it adds another layer of interest to what, frankly, is already a very interesting championship battle we have.
Yeah.
What were your apprehensions?
No, it was just to do with what is the point? What are we trying to achieve by doing it? And to me, initially, I looked at it and said, it just seems like the first 20 laps of the Sunday race we're just doing again. So maybe, I don't know, I was a bit unsure of what was really the purpose for having this extra race. I always think if you're going to do something, if you're going to do change is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these people who's fixated in the past or fixated on certain things. I think we have to be adapting the world of sport. Yeah. You look at the IPL, it's changed the way people view cricket, and it's a huge success story. And so I'm all for change, but I think change has to come with a reason. And I was a little bit unsure of the reasons, but I think on its own, I'm not convinced still that it's enough of a reason to change. But the fact that it's changed this entire weekend on the whole, when you look at it on a macro level, then I think it's a positive.
Most F1 drivers grew up racing in Europe. What makes Europe such an exciting and fertile place for grooming Formula One drivers?
Well, I think it's the fact that it's already developed, and as you mentioned, from in developing countries, especially in the motorsport context, like you can never describe Singapore or China being underdeveloped as a country. However, in a motorsport context, in terms of infrastructure, it's still a long way behind Europe. And I think ultimately, for drivers who want to climb that ladder to Formula One or to Le Mans, to the pinnacle of the sport, you have to come to Europe. This is where the best young driver training championships are. Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2 are all run basically out of Europe. And, for any driver who wants to climb that pyramid, they do have to come here and commit themselves to this career.
Do you expect Formula One to come back to India?
I don't know. Ultimately, I have no real expectations for that, to be honest. Ultimately, I think people didn't recognize, perhaps at the time, people didn't recognize the effort and the cost involved with hosting Formula One, that the JP Group, as a private group, not government funded, were investing into the sport. They didn't get the credit they deserve. They spent they spent the best part of $500 million across a 4-year period to bring Formula One to India. And that's a huge amount of money for a private organization to be investing into the sport. So unless the government truly get behind it and truly decide to put some funding behind it, like Singapore has done, I'm not saying it has to be 100%, but Singapore, they've done a great job of creating this partnership with Ong Beng Seng and his group of companies, with Singtel and getting Singapore Airlines involved and all with the corporate sector. But I think actually that's a very good business model, is you do a partnership of a private public sector partnership to make it work. And, unless though there is some amount of support from the government to do it, I can't see Formula One coming back to India.
What do you think about the Singapore GP? Isn't it the most exciting race in the world?
I think it's certainly it's got to be up there as in the top half, definitely. I think it's a very subjective question, right? I like the challenge of a high-speed track like Suzuka in Japan or Silverstone here in England. Monza in Italy has got a huge amount of history there, going back to the 50s. But I think of the new age races, Singapore is certainly the best one. If you look at, I think you have to separate. There's a clear division between the historical venues and, let's say, the new age venues. And I think of the new age venues, Singapore is definitely the best one. You know, if you compare it with places like Abu Dhabi and Baku and places like that, I think Singapore is certainly one of the best.
If you enjoyed that, please press the like button and definitely share and subscribe to Connected to India's YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.